Hello, my dear friends. I have a question put to me that I would like to address, and that is the issue of are two by two people, are they good people? That's basically the question that I get been put to me many, many times. And I've had some ex two by twos argue to me or that two by twos, even though they're in a cult, they are themselves actually, on average, good people. And so I'd like to discuss this because I think it's a lot more complicated than it seems on the face of it. So the first is, how do you define good people or a good person? What does that mean? I mean, relative to what? So if you say, well, you know, a good person is a person who is not a criminal. Well, okay. Yeah, most two by twos are probably not criminals. They're not, at least they're not been convicted of major crimes. Okay. But you could say that for in any group basically in the population. It's not that's not a signifier of much. Um, but generally, when these people say two by twos are good people, what they're getting at is that the two by twos are generally not alcoholics, not thieves, not liars, um, not philanderers, things like that. That they're trustworthy. That if they tell you they're going to, tell you X, that X actually will happen. And I think those statements are, for the most part, true, but I don't think those statements capture the essence of a good person. And I'm going to discuss this why now. So the first is, if you think about what the two by two, uh, say, ethics or morality is, it's a legalistic system. So for them, it's about following certain rules. Right now, they try to follow the Ten Commandments, obviously, to its letter of the law, and they also follow all these other two by two rules to the letter of the law. Right, so that's why no lying and being trustworthy and so forth. However, when there's no one to catch them, no enforcement mechanism, you'll find that many of them are violating some of these laws. And I'll give you an example. So one of the two by two laws is they're not supposed to have a television in their home. Well, surprise, surprise, many two by twos they love to go on vacations uh, so they can rent a hotel room and watch television in the hotel. Okay, so clearly that's a violation of their own laws. So they're living a double life. Now that's really what I'm going to get at is that the two by twos themselves, basically all of them, have double lives, lives of lies, where they're lying to each other about themselves. So how can you be a good person if you live a double life, a double lying life? It's pretty weird, isn't it? So here's another example about just with a TV. Again, they're not allowed to have TVs in their homes, but surprise, surprise, when there's a major television event like a sporting event, so in the US, maybe that's the Super Bowl or something like that, or in Canada, that might be something like a hockey match or something. All of a sudden, two by twos will show up at the homes of someone they know who owns a television, someone who obviously is not going to meetings, and they'll show up just for a friendly visit. And oh my goodness, is there actually this sporting match on TV? Well, we didn't even know that. That's just a coincidence. Well, yes, love to watch it with you. Yes, yes, of course. And then when the match is over, they take off. So what's going on? Well, they're using this person to get access to a TV. That's usury. I mean, that is actually a sin, right? To use another person as an end in itself, as means, sorry, using another person as a means to an end. That's an awful thing. So that's not very good at all. The next thing is about like, so two by twos are not supposed to drink alcohol. Okay, so what's the issue here? Well, why is alcohol considered bad by, in general, if you say someone's, that person doesn't drink alcohol, the issue is really not about the actual consumption of the alcohol. It's about the behavior of the person after the consumption of the alcohol. So what it means is you have parents who are alcoholics, you'll notice that it's not the fact that they're consuming the alcohol, it's how their behavior changes in ways which is detrimental to them being a parent. For example, it could be a lot of fighting, yelling, hitting, taking out on each other or on the children. So if you think about two by twos, okay, they don't have alcohol in the home, but does that stop them from this type of really negative behavior on each other and on the kids? Well, no, it doesn't. There's most two by two homes. You can talk to ex two by twos and ask them what their home life was like. Were very abusive homes, abusive in the terms of the children being beaten, the children being yelled at, and even worse, actually, than those things is that the terrorization of the children. But almost every two by two home, actually, yeah, except for the most watery two by twos, who are a very small minority. But for like the standard, you know, bog standard two by two home is one where the parents terrorize the children psychologically by telling the kids from right from infancy that if they don't abide by these certain two by two rules, that God will strike them down with lightning. Instead, they're just instilling this deep fear into these kids. Of course, then also I've discussed this in other podcasts about the use of violence on the children, like enormous amounts of violence in the early years to drill them into submission for the rest of their lives. So, yeah, they're not drinking alcohol, these parents, but they're doing far worse than alcoholic parents would be doing. So again, that's not good at all. That's not a good person. Now, the thing about they don't lie or they're trustworthy. Well, okay, step back for a second. And who are two by twos in general? What socioeconomic group do they come from? Well, for the general case of a two by two in North America and in the UK and in Australia is a blue collar kind of salt of the earth involved in agriculture or in living in an agricultural area. Okay. Guess what? If you go to most people in those communities, their behavior is exactly the same as two by twos in the sense of being trustworthy with it, being honest and things like that. Being okay, so that's it's actually nothing to do with the fact of these people being two by twos. It's just a fact that that's the kind of community they live in. So it's it's a it's not a statement about two by twos. And I mean, frankly, almost anyone from any religious denomination does those things also is trustworthy and so forth. So it's not a great statement. The other thing is though, if there are some two by twos who are more wealthy and whatnot, and if you start digging into them, you'll find out they're quite, let's say, creative with the truth. Okay, creative with reality. Basically, they play real loose with the facts. I mean, when you get talking to two by two royalty, you'll figure that out. Okay, so yeah, it's not uh, a case about them being two by twos that keeps these, gives the impression that they're honest and trustworthy. It's their socioeconomic bracket that's doing that. There are some other issues about whether they're good people or not, and that is about, let's say, take the topic of charity. Okay, so generally you think of a good person as a person who's charitable in all functions. They give money to the poor, or they help people in need, or they are charitable with their time and so forth. Well, here's the thing: two by twos are not charitable at all. Yeah, they're charitable to each other, but they're not charitable to other people in the community. Not at all. I mean, you ask go find your neighborhood 2x2s and see how many of them are involved in helping the poor, food kitchens, stuff like that. Not too many, if at all. Ask your local two by twos if they have a food pantry in their for their congregation that they hand out to other people. They don't do that. I mean, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who's a Seventh-day Adventist in São Paulo, Brazil, and so Seventh-day Adventists go to church on Saturday. So this guy and his family go to church on Saturday, and then on Sunday, him and his family spend the whole morning from 7 in the morning till noon handing out food to poor people in downtown Sao Paulo. Okay, food they bought with their own money, of course. And there's a whole bunch of other Seventh Day Adventist families doing the same thing. That's charity, okay, and that's what happens in other denominations. Two by twos don't do anything like that at all. So how can you say they're good people? But the final point I'd like to make about two by twos, whether they're good or bad, aside, well, maybe it won't be the final point. I think there's a few more things, but is the issue of let's say courage. When you think of a good person, you think of someone who's courageous. What does that mean? Well, I ran into a burning building and saved a child. No, I mean standing up for truth. Okay, no matter what comes your way, no matter the negative stuff that comes at you, you'll stand up for truth. Well, two by twos do not stand up for truth. They do not. And the proof is in their own group where they have these over 700 perpetrators who've been identified in the last 12 months that they never did anything about. These child rapists in the last 12 months. They've done nothing about it. Almost every 2x2 person has known there's been problems within their congregations, within their local little meeting groups of people, and they did nothing about it. I'm going to give you an example. It's not a child rapist case because I think you can go and find a lot of information about that. But this is a case of a 2x2 family, and the elder in this community, or I guess you call meeting, was well liked by the 2x2 ministers, and he moved away, just retired or something, and his son became the elder, and the son was very, very abusive to his children and his wife, like beating, like a lot of beatings. Okay, and one day the wife was found um, on the side of the road near this person's house, uh, stripped naked and black and blue. And she was found not by a 2x2. She was found by someone in another community, someone who worked in a bar, a bartender. Okay. And that bartender picked this person up, picked up this woman, and took her to the bar where the person worked, the Good Samaritans worked, and gave her some clothes and then took her to a women's shelter for the night. No 2x2 did anything. Okay, you say, well, they didn't know. This was news in the community. No Cube 2x2 stepped in and did anything to help this woman subsequently thereafter. Still, this beatings and stuff went on for another year or so, and this woman kept going to this women's shelter. She got no support from the 2x2 women in the community, nothing. Okay, nothing happened. In fact, this woman ended up leaving her husband and her children to get away for her own safety. And the 2x2s in the community were good riddance, get rid of her. She was a bad woman because she wanted to wear pants. Okay, that is the behavior of 2x2s. That's the behavior, and that's what I've seen consistently through 2x2s. They badmouth people. They're judgmental, um, and they're not courageous. They're not charitable, and they themselves live totally duplicitous lives. It's sick. I mean, we have a number of 2x2s who are uh, their whole reason for remaining in a 2x2s is because they wanted the inheritance from their parents, right? Because they know that if they leave, they'll get disowned by their parents. So you remain inside a totally corrupt system, indoctrinating your children into this corrupt system, Also, you can get money from your parents, who the parents obviously are like nuts because they're involved in a cult. That this is the kind of behavior that goes on. Is this the mark of a good person? Is this the mark of a person who you would like to be your leader? I don't think so. This is a mark of people who are highly corrupt, morally corrupt people. These are kind of people who, when the push comes to shove, they'll turn on you. And I think most people who've become X 2x2s, when they think about it, they'll realize that all of the 2x2 friends they had who shunned them when they left, this is the same thing. They'll turn on you because they don't actually have any, there's no commitment to truth in these people. There's no commitment to an ethics. It's just about their own skin, about their own status inside this cult. That's the most important thing to them. I don't think that means they're good people. I think that actually the kind of people to avoid at all costs. Those are the kind of people that I think are evil incarnate. Actually, that's what evil looks like.